Hey everybody, hi, it's Ryan from Red Level. Hey, you will not believe what just happened this week. I got my first pair of SharePoint socks. Okay, that's right. I attended the SharePoint North American conference for the very first time. I've been involved in this industry and this community for since 2007 when SharePoint got big, and I got my first big chance to go to a large conference, and it was phenomenal. That's all I have to say. It was phenomenal. And yes, I have also OneDrive socks and my favorite, the Yammer socks. So I'm just swimming in swag. It is just a fantastic, cool thing that's going on. So I'm just gonna give you guys just a quick kind of tips. I went through a whole series of sessions and kind of the things that stood out from the keynote and different pieces of the puzzle. And it's just low key. I flew in last night, so we're gonna just kind of go through it and check it out. So here we go. All right, so my background is I'm a developer, I'm a configurer, I'm an admin, and a user adoption and collaboration specialist. So that means that every track really applied to me, and I had a lot of anxiety about, oh, I gotta pick the right session to get to and all that stuff. So there's a whole variety of things the SharePoint North American Conference really covers. And if you've never been, this is my kind of my plug, if you've never been, you should go. It's about 3,000 to 5,000 people. It's probably the right size to, when you sit down at the lunch table, you're with all people you don't know, and you get a chance to like hear their story, you know? So I met, one table was a guy from Belgium, Sweden, California, and Virginia. Another table had 3 Californians and a guy from works for Microsoft, 2 employees from Microsoft. Another table was a group of kind of Midwest people. So it's just like every day you would meet new people, but we're all in it together, kind of trying to work on the same set of problems. So that kind of networking was almost like invaluable type of takeaway. The second other cool thing, before I get to some of the content, was getting a chance to meet what I call the SharePoint or Office 365 celebrities. So Microsoft MVPs, Dan Holm, Mark Cashman, Joanne Klein. These are folks that they're posting and they're putting out content regularly to help out the community of folks that are trying to solve these kind of similar kinds of problems. And so they're very approachable. I'd see them in the hallway and just introduce myself. Like, you're Joanne Klein, right? And the funny story about that is I was sitting in the keynote. It's this huge auditorium, like huge, massive types of screens that are up there. And I hear this voice behind me that I recognize. And it's so clearly, it's the voice of Jeremy Thake, okay? And Jeremy Thake is he's one of the founders of a partner called Hyperfish, and he works for Microsoft, and he's part of the Microsoft Graph team. But I recognize his voice because I've been listening to his podcast for the last 3 years. And he's got an unmistaken like Australian accent, right? And like I could hear him behind me, and I didn't do this, but I almost stood up without looking, did the no look, Jeremy Thake, right? Kind of a thing, but I did turn around, introduce myself, say hello, and just appreciate all the work he's done. But those kinds of things, the folks there are so down to earth, they're really willing to help and get to know those. So if you have kind of a little bit of a networking kind of personality, you can really that you as a fish can really swim in these waters. Okay, so now to the good stuff, okay? The good stuff is that during Microsoft in SharePoint Modern, there's a theme generator that is kind of okay, but they're gonna be coming out with a brand new interface that's gonna give you a scale of how accessible or contrasting your colors are gonna be. That's gonna be a great new feature. One of the neat new features you're gonna have is the ability of templating a whole site. So you can build out and you can grab, and I'm just gonna start kind of zooming in a little bit here. You can now use this PowerShell command to then create a site and then run that PowerShell command and then create a site script that says, here's all of the code that made up that site you created, and then you can apply that to other sites, okay? And the cool thing that's different about templates you have to use only once at the beginning. Site scripts and site designs can be applied after the site is live. So you can actually retroactively go to your 1,000 sites and go apply this script after the fact. Oh, wow, we forgot this thing, and you can go re-add that in. It's really cool. Then Microsoft Flow got a lot of love, okay, from the product group. They're going to be having, you can respond to an approval inside Microsoft Chat or Teams, okay, which is really cool. And they're also changing the approval, so it's not just yes, no, so it's yes, no, maybe, or whatever your fourth or fifth option are, so you can have a little more dynamic type of operations inside your approval, more than just the thumbs up and thumbs down. Okay, I saw a great demo on the PDF and Word document generator from Flow. So you can fill out a form, then it fills out a document like a receipt for like I don't know, like a field service work order type of thing for a plumber coming to your house. Okay, now some of the big news that came out was this thing called, what are called SharePoint home sites. And this is now where we're seeing the SharePoint modern interface really begin to take on a lot of the same functionality that we saw in previous versions on premise. So we're going to see a page that's very, very wide. The content goes all the way to the edges, and once again, it's modern, so it's responsive. So the current modern is very kind of a lot of white spaces on the side. So that's going to be a major catering thing to a lot of designers. The other things that they showed in the home site is that a lot of targeted content. So if I'm in North America, I can have web parts that then know my geographic location and show me content for North America. So we currently don't have that right now, and so that's going to be coming out, I think, over the next kind of 6 months. So the home sites were really cool, a lot of glitz, a lot of glam. They really kind of shocked and awed everybody. But the funniest thing is during the keynote, the item that the new release item that they're going to be putting out that got the most applause is the ability to change the site URL. So historically, as long as SharePoint's been around, when you create a site collection, the URL you give it is stuck. It's kind of like frozen in stone. If you want a different one, and I had to do this a number of times, you'd have to delete it and recreate it, okay? So now they're giving us an opportunity to then re-URL a site, and actually they're gonna create a redirect that all traffic will redirect from the old URL to the new one. So that's kind of a little bit of magic behind the scenes they could be doing. So poof, magic hat, magic rabbit out of the hat. Some of the other cool things that I introduced that I thought were really amazing was for OneDrive, the sync client is now going to be offering what they call differential sync. Okay, so if you've made a change to a document, it doesn't sync the whole document, it will now just sync the differences or the changes of that document and put those up there. So the demo they did was of an AutoCAD file, okay? So AutoCAD files are traditionally used as illustrations for documents and file types that are just gargantuan in size, okay? And typically we don't keep those in kind of an Office 365 kind of environment because they're so big. You don't sync them because they're so large. But that's what was the demo they did. It was a file that was a gig in size, basically huge, and then they made a small change to it, and it's synced in like a second, 2 seconds kind of a thing, because it only synced the changes, okay? So that's what differential sync is all about. That was really kind of a game changer. The other cool thing about the differential sync, it's for non-Microsoft applications too. So it's PDFs, it's Adobe's, it's you name it, it's gonna be those. All right, so if you're a SharePoint admin, so the SharePoint Office 365 Admin Center is now, we've had a classic one that had all the current features, and they've been rolling out this modern version looking one. So it's really nice, it looks good, but didn't have the same features in it. But now they've joined parity, okay? And you don't have to basically think of it like bouncing between two houses. Now you can fully move into the new modern admin experience. Microsoft is releasing a new search engine, okay? So it's going to be your enterprise-wide search. It's going to combine everything from SharePoint, your OneDrive, Yammer, Stream, which is your video service, and also you can be integrated into Bing. So that it can also have a people search and also a dedicated video search scenario. So that's pretty cool. This Microsoft search is now, we used to think that the SharePoint search engine or the fast search engine was going to do this, but now we're really beginning to see the power of an integrated enterprise-wide search solution with Microsoft Search. All right, now one of those tools that is one of my closest and favorite is the Yammer environment. Oh, look at them socks. I love them, okay? So, and Yammer has gotten a ton of love from the Microsoft. They said they had the most number of engineers working on the Yammer product than ever before. And They also said that since March of 2017, March 2017 is when Microsoft Teams released, they've had twice the amount of usage of Microsoft Yammer. So there's a lot of arguments that and kind of opinions that say, well, with Teams, I don't need Yammer anymore, right? And there's this little bit of argument between the two because there is some similarities and there's overlap. There's grouping, there's conversations. And it's funny, I heard someone say, well, Teams is for chat and Yammer is for conversations. I'm like, isn't chatting a conversation? Like in the great world, the comment made no sense to me. So, but it is. There's a UI like rapid fire kind of thing for Teams where I don't know, Yammer is kind of like a post and then a conversation, threaded conversation. That's really the threaded conversation kind of thing, right? And so the way that they explained it was actually how I explained it. It was really similar. So they used the analogy that Teams is for doing tasks, okay, accomplishing tasks, and Yammer is for discovery, right? Discovery of content, information, things that are out there. You don't know what you don't know, so you use Yammer to talk. And so Yammer's got a lot of cool things. They're gonna have a brand new thing called live events. So you can broadcast as a combination of stream and Yammer. So a live video event could be happening. And you have like a chat panel that goes into Yammer and it has a built-in Q&A and you can mark the actual official answer. So the live events, I think, is gonna be one of this, a new offering, kind of it's like almost like it's a whole set of tools to have an executive suite engage with their organization. And Yammer is going to be one of the main tools, and so is Stream and live events. So it's a great combination of those. The other cool thing I thought was the Q&A bot, right? So people are going out there to ask questions, and then you can actually mark, oh, this is the official question or answer to that question that's there. So there's a lot of use cases surrounding that for Yammer. I thought that was very interesting. There tons of additional things is that there is a European data set for Yammer now. So you can have your Yammer spinned up in Europe and not in America. So your data can be very geographically separated. Let's see here, what else do we have? Other topics that where I saw really good is the security. I attended a session on security. There wasn't any new announcements about security, but it's just kind of that like, hey, let's get really familiar with the security set that's there, from identity management to locational trusts, okay? And that's really, really neat, where you have like this idea of that some people can be a global admin at certain times and they have to get requests. Because that's kind of, you don't have a low security score, you want to have a high security score. And so it's a good reminder of looking at all those security components and refamiliarizing myself with those. Okay, then I went to this one great session about people kind of showing off telling their story about their intranet. And one of the big takeaways was there is they said, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you just got to tell stories better. And that's what's so true with the Microsoft SharePoint modern experience. It allows users to tell their story better. They can grab web parts, and these were non-technical folks, people from like a marketing or corporate communications background. They really went to town in showing off those features, okay? Like they saw that this was a tool to help them tell their story and accomplish their business objectives of like, hey, we want company engagement to go up. We don't want geographic people to feel like second-class citizens. There's all of these problems they wanted to solve, and I found that really great. And they used these couple of tips. They said, okay, number one, they say, tell better stories. Next, use pictures whenever possible to humanize yourself, right? Obviously, I'm not doing that, okay? Define your business objectives. And there's like so many people, organizations, they have this Office 365 idea. It's like a Ferrari that sits in the garage that they never use, okay? And then also, lastly, the big tip was, hey, really invest in a champions network, whatever that may be, but really get into it. So I found that was just incredibly refreshing and confirming a lot of the work that we do here at CDH and Red Level is that the way we go about rolling out intranets is how everyone else is doing it, right? We're using the same kind of language. Then I took a great session on Microsoft Forms. That's the survey and quizzes and tool. So they have a lot of new features in there. You can have sections. You can have a Net Promoter Score. So what this is, if you've never used, if you have like SurveyMonkey where you send out surveys and quizzes for people, Microsoft Forms is the internal tool that does that. It's also going to be now turning into what I call a learning management system, because you can now have in the middle of a training PowerPoint or a video, you can pause it and the user takes a test, takes one of your forms or quizzes. They haven't kind of worked out like the hardening of that so that like can't move on till you pass, right? They haven't done that kind of stuff quite yet, but it's on the roadmap. I'm really excited for organizations to be able to very inexpensively come up with a learning management system like, hey, you got to walk through these 5 videos, take these tests. When you do this, then we give you this certification, or hey, you can now venture out into the plant. So I think that was very easy in application and a low barrier type of technology that can give you a lot of bang for your buck with Microsoft Forms. They also announced there's a new tool that's coming out, Forms Pro, okay, which then gets you forms. You can collect data, but then you can push it into Power BI for greater analytics. So you can get charts and drill down some graphs. So like, for example, Net Promoter is a good example for me. The Net Promoter example is where you send out a survey. It says, are your employees promoting your company, right? Or are they negative? When they're not at work, someone mentions your organization, like, yeah, no, I love working here, and they promote it, okay? Or, nah, it's a bummer, I don't like it, don't buy our products, right? So when I worked at Chrysler, we had this, and the idea was we want our promoter score to be high, and that illustrates that, hey, we're gonna have longer retention, and we're promoting in the best sellers of Chrysler vehicles were the people who work there, so, and FCA vehicles. So it was really super important. So that is now done. You can do that with Microsoft Forms, and you can have this Net Promoter survey, but then you can put it into a Power BI, and you can drill down by question, by organization, by standard, by department, and you can see, you know, by manager, like, how's this going, right? And then take action. The key is then to take action on top of that when you're done. So that was really kind of amazing. So Microsoft Forms, kind of a smaller, lesser used tool, but it's really growing in use. It's actually Microsoft's fastest growing product in Office 365 right now. So if you're not thinking about it, you should, right? Another session I went on was the SPX, that's the SharePoint framework web parts, okay? And so I'm used to building web parts years ago using Visual Studio and C# and the content editor web part for doing client-side code. So there's a new model called the SharePoint framework, and I've been kind of like, I heard about it, but like, you know, I just need to see kind of the end-to-end kind of comparison. How does that compare to the old school? So they had a great session on that. I showed you the content editor web part. Here's this tool. Hey, how would I do that now using the SharePoint framework, which gives you tons of extensibility. That one web part you can put in Teams, in SharePoint, but you can also be an add-on in Microsoft Office without having to rewrite it. That's amazing, okay? So a lot of cool stuff there. If you're a developer, it was just off the hook. Then I gotta jump to the end because I'm almost out of time. My last session I took was on Power Apps, and I got a chance to listen to a pretty famous guy in the community called Chris O'Brien, and they went through, he basically did a case study on a mobile Power App, okay, which is something we do all the time, and he talked about now enabling what are called offline capabilities. Like if you're on an iPad and you have an app, how do you then save a record when you're not connected? Because by default, Power Apps really wants to be like a live connection to the underlying data, whether it's SQL Server or an ERP system or a SharePoint list. So he walked through and I was very familiar with the coding like kind of functions you use there, but then to see him kind of lay out a pattern. Okay, this is the pattern I used, okay? And I was like, oh, right, yes. And he kind of just took it to the final step and says, okay, here is the official pattern, you know, and I could hack it along, but then kind of gave a nice little pattern for this is how you do offline capabilities. The same thing with like taking your phone and doing image rendering. So that is the SharePoint conference. Those are kind of like my takeaways. I was there for 4 days, super cool. And like I said, the people was number one. Meeting the celebrities, and then just getting a chance to really learn from the experts was super neat. And so I'll do it again. I feel like this was my first one, and I want to come back every year. And so if you have questions, if you're curious about what it was like for me, you guys can check it out on my Twitter blog. Twitter, I'm at Ryan Charnock 9, and I'm on LinkedIn also. So I was like live tweeting all the time, all week long, and retweeting kind of the major kind of things. And so if you want to connect with me, connect me on those different places. So thanks a lot, folks. I know it's a little longer than 5 minutes, but hopefully find it really helpful. And the SharePoint conference was super fantastic. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.